we just simply cannot continue to go on spending American taxpayer dollars, actually spending much more than we receive from the American taxpayer. Think of it this way, Joe, in this fiscal year that we're in, 12-month period, we're going to be taking in about $5 trillion in revenue coming in, and we're going to be spending $7 trillion. Taking in 5, spending 7. Now imagine if your household, any business operated that way for an extended period of time. I mean, it just simply would fail. We know that.
Welcome to Straight to the Point. I'm your host, Representative Joe Dorsey. In a world of long-windedness, I'm here to deliver you the Capitol News in 10 minutes or less. So, let's get straight to the point.
So welcome to the Straight to the Point podcast. I am Representative Joe Dorsey, and I have a special guest today. He represents Pennsylvania's 11th Congressional District. He reports to Washington, not Harrisburg. He covers Lancaster County and much of southern York County. Congressman Lloyd Smucker. Thanks for joining, Lloyd.
Sure, Representative. Great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
So, Lloyd, tell me a little bit about the 11th District. It's changed, actually, I was going to say a lot over the last few years. What areas do you cover?
Sure. It's a great district. I speak out of as the best district out of 435 across the nation. I love representing the district I do. I'm always grateful for the opportunity to be the voice of the wonderful people of the 11th District of Pennsylvania. So it includes, first of all of Lancaster County. As you said, the district has shifted. And at one point, it was a little further east, but they shifted it west, all of Lancaster County now. And then about 60% of York County, roughly the southern half of York County as well. So like I said, beautiful area, wonderful people. And great to have the opportunity. I always consider it a real honor and a privilege to be able to go to Washington, D.C. and represent the people of the district.
And of course, we overlap in Hellam Township and Hellam and Wrightsville boroughs. And sometimes I get questions from constituents, how much do you interface or overlap with your congressional counterparts? And when it comes to legislation, not so much, but we interact quite a bit. I'm honored to overlap with you and be in communication with you.
Yeah, well, you've been a great member of the House. As you know, I served in the Pennsylvania State Senate for 2 terms prior to serving in Congress. But no, I feel the same way. It's been really great to work with you on issues that impact our communities. I think you're doing a great job there, and I've really enjoyed working with you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Let's pivot into what's dominating headlines right now nationally. It's the budget. It's the big, beautiful bill. I think that your resume, Lloyd, in terms of your committee positions, is really important, and I'm looking forward to hearing your comments on the budget. So you're on the Committee on Ways and Means. You serve on the subcommittees of Trade, Social Security, and Tax, and then you sit on the Committee on the Budget. So you're uniquely positioned to kind of give us an inside scoop on the budget. So let me first ask this question. In Pennsylvania, we have a constitutional deadline of June 30th to complete our budget. Certainly in past years, it's gone past that date. How does it shape up in Washington? And I know the president's goal is July 4th. How do you see that playing out? Sure.
Well, let me say this first. When I was in the state Senate, I thought the Pennsylvania process to arrive at a budget on an annual basis was difficult, sort of broken. And then I came to the federal government, and I realized that it really is, the budget process here really is completely broken. There was a Budget Control Act in 1974, over 50 years ago now, that attempted to change the process to ensure, to drive more accountability in the budget process. That worked for about 10 years. And then we got into this system where instead of passing an annual budget, let alone it being balanced, one of the good things about the state, in Pennsylvania at least, most states, is that it requires a balanced budget so that projected revenues that are expected over the next fiscal year need to match the expenditures that are appropriated in that process. That just simply doesn't exist in the federal government. And so rarely do we pass a 12-month budget that even appropriates what we'll be spending over the next 12 months, but never, not for a long time, not since the Clinton years, frankly, when Clinton and Gingrich were there, have we passed a budget that balanced. And so it's a real problem, actually. And in fact, it's one of the things that I'm most concerned about as a member of Congress, and as you mentioned, serving on the Budget Committee. I'm vice chair of the committee, working very closely with the chair, and we both think about this similarly in that, we just simply cannot continue to go on spending American taxpayer dollars, actually spending much more than we receive from the American taxpayer. Think of it this way, Joe, over in this fiscal year that we're in, 12-month period, we're going to be taking in about $5 trillion in revenue coming in, and we're going to be spending $7 trillion. Taking in 5, spending 7. Now imagine if your household, any business operated that way for an extended period of time. I mean, it just simply would fail. We know that. I'm concerned that the same thing will happen at the federal government if we don't begin to get our fiscal house in order, if we don't change the trajectory that we're on right now. You will see a massive impact at some point. We just simply can't. Not only are we adding $2 trillion to the debt this year, by the way, that debt is $36 trillion, $37 trillion almost now. But that's projected, adding that level of debt, that amount of deficit is projected to increase every year as far as we can see if we don't make changes. And so it's a broken process, it's a frustrating process, and it's one that we have to change course.
So President Trump has been touting his big, beautiful bill. What's in the bill that you're eyeing as a priority? What isn't in the bill? Because there's been a lot of myths. I know my office, certainly your office, is probably getting calls about Medicaid cuts and this and that. What's in the bill that you're eyeing, and what's not in the bill that maybe is a myth?
Sure. Well, let's start with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, which lowered tax rates for corporations, lowered tax rates for individuals, lowered tax rates for small businesses, with the goal of driving stronger economic growth and increasing revenue, even with lower rates. If you put the right tax structure in place, the right policies in place, we can drive stronger economic growth. And we simply can't get out of the situation we're in that I just described without an economy that's growing faster than it is right now. And so one of the goals of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was to allow our companies here, corporations, to compete with other companies around the world. Our rates had been higher. We were well above many other countries. So we lowered the rates, and we saw that impact. We saw the growth from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, millions of jobs created, trillions of dollars reinvested back in the United States and jobs here rather than overseas. So it worked, and we saw increasing revenue as a result of it. Large pieces of that bill, namely the rates for individuals, the lower tax rates for individuals, and the lower tax rates for every small business, what we call Main Street businesses that are so critical and important to our communities. Those lower rates will expire at the end of 2025 if we don't extend those rates. So that's the basis. That's why this bill is so important. We need to ensure that we don't see what would be the largest tax increase in our history if we allow those reduced rates from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to expire. And so that's a critical piece of that's the basis of this bill, the reason it's so important, the reason it's a priority of the president, the priority of every Republican member of Congress. And then on top of that, we're using this bill through it's being done through a process called budget reconciliation, which would require only a majority in the Senate rather than 60 votes, as most bills do due to the filibuster. So we're using it through a process called reconciliation. That's a bill that could be done once, maybe twice per year. And so we're including in that bill some key priorities, in addition to the extension of the tax rate, some other key priorities that will deliver on the mandate that the American people gave us and gave President Trump in this past election, such as border security, ensuring that we get operational control of the border within just a few months, building the wall, using technology, additional border patrol agents. All of this, this is what the people voted for in November when they elected President Trump, ensuring peace through strength, ensuring that our military has, in a world that's changing very quickly, weapons systems are changing quickly. We want to ensure that those individuals who are serving in the military, who are risking their lives every day for us to keep Americans safe, have the best tools and equipment to enable them to do their jobs effectively. That's included in the bill. And then energy dominance, unleashing American energy so that we don't have to rely on other countries that sometimes are at odds with us, may be our enemies. We don't want to have to rely on energy from them. And so ensuring that we allow America to be energy dominant, frankly, able to export energy, that's all part of this bill. So there are key provisions in this bill that will help us deliver on the promises that have been made during this past election cycle that are really critical.
Yeah, so energy being one of the mainstays there. That's an acute issue for Pennsylvanians. As you know, Congressman, we have enough natural gas under our feet in Pennsylvania to power the rest of the United States. We're the #2 exporter, and we can ship it elsewhere, and there's no reason we shouldn't be exporting it to a greater degree. So, lightning round question here, Congressman. So we touched on the Independence Day goal of this big, beautiful bill from the president. Certainly, there's a lot of work that has to be done. I read just this morning that the status of this bill is in the Senate. They're making adjustments. Where do we go from here? Well,
so months of negotiation went into this bill in the House. There were a number of individuals, myself, the Budget Committee, and others who want to ensure that we do this in a fiscally responsible way. So we were requiring that we find savings in some of our programs to help pay for the cost of the tax cuts. And so, there's a lot of waste in some of these programs like SNAP and Medicaid. We want to ensure that those programs stay strong, stay solvent, so that every American who really needs that, vulnerable individuals, who need some help for some period of time, have access to these programs. To do that, we have to ensure that those who should not be receiving the benefits are not included in the rolls. And so all of that is included in this bill as well. There's been a lot of negotiation in the House on this bill. It then moved over to the Senate, and the Senate now is doing their work. They are expected, they've released their version of the bill. They will have debate on that as well, and hope to pass that next week before July 4th. If it is identical to ours, then that would go to the president's desk, but there will be changes, it looks like, and we believe, and that's appropriate. And then we'll have to work out those differences. And so they'll pass the bill. We'll then work out the differences through maybe a conference committee, or there's other ways that can be done. And then we hope to have this to the president's desk as soon as possible, hopefully in July at some point. And it's important we do that quickly. We want Americans to benefit from, there are additional tax changes in this bill. There's a lot in this bill that I haven't mentioned. For instance, it would be the first school choice program at the federal level. A lot of other great policy wins in there. There's no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on the interest for car loans. So there's a lot of great policy wins in here. So the sooner we can deliver this relief to the American people, the better. That's why we think it's important we get this done, hopefully in the next month or so, get it to the president's desk and he can sign it into law.
Yeah, so that's something I'll certainly be watching as I work diligently next week. Hopefully it's finished next week, the state budget. So he's Congressman Lloyd Smucker. He represents PA's 11th Congressional District covering beautiful Lancaster and York counties. Congressman, thanks for joining Straight to the Point.
Thanks for having me.
This has been Straight to the Point. Visit repjod.com/mypodcasts.